Hello everyone. Good evening. Thank you for joining to the Practical Cities initiative. Right now our theme is going on urban planning and urban design. In the previous class we learned about form-based approach in the Indian context. Nowadays we are reading a lot about placemaking and public spaces, but we really don't know how it actually works on ground, and how a simple place is converted into the public space. So to learn this more in depth, we have Ethan Khan from PlacemakingX. Ethan Khan has more than 20 years of experience in public spaces and public placing movement. He has worked with several projects, organizations, and he's trying to get a global placemaking movement and build system which change towards a place-led urbanization. He has worked with several organizations and several countries. He has traveled more than 50 countries, and with his knowledge and everything, he has agreed to give his tremendous knowledge about placemaking with us. He has worked with several projects like Times Square, Astor Place in New York, Garden Place in Hamilton, Congress Square in Portland, also high profile development projects in Hong Kong, Dubai, San Francisco, Auckland, etc. etc. In and out, he's Wikipedia of placemaking. So it's my pleasure, and I'm really, really very happy to welcome him on the board. Welcome, sir.
Thank you so much, Drashti, for having me and for the whole Practical Cities team. Really inspired by what you guys are building capacity for a whole range of important livability, transportation, urbanization issues in India, and a great partner for this. I have found that there's more passion and actually an expertise really for and urban planning in India than any other part of the world, and where I've enjoyed getting to visit India and actually travel for a few time ago all around India, staying with families in urban and rural areas, and gotten to work there more recently, doing some placemaking trainings.
That's great. Wow.
Put in by Reliance Corporation and with some municipal corporate commissioners actually to do training as well. But we've recently found in the last year that more people from India than any other country have been signing up to be part of PlacemakingX, and it's just such a robust conversation.
Yeah.
But we also feel that there's a need to bring this together. The placemaking is about drawing it. The skills are often there in any context, in any community, country, but we see place and placemaking as a framework, as a lens to draw the best out of many different disciplines, and people that aren't disciplines, people in communities, to harness their energies, their creativity, their knowledge to shape public spaces. So I'm going to share my...
Yeah. Also, sir, I would like to ask you, what is placemaking and how cities have been implementing it really on ground, and how placemaking principles are working in the cities. Can you please explain it with your projects and experience?
Certainly, yeah. So I'll go through the presentation and get to some of that
Yeah, sure.
as well. And so we see placemaking, as really sort of turning upside down the shaping of cities, to start with place as a shared goal. And we'll talk about how, in a way, Indian cities were built around places very, very effectively as anywhere. But there's been a lot of forces moving away from that. So we pose the question of what if Indian cities around places, how would that reorganize and draw out new creativity from communities, especially in this time of crisis, especially in this time of to reinvent our public realm and public spaces. So all around the world, on all scales, we're seeing people come to this cause of placing from different disciplines, different passions, different expertise, whether they're coming at it from a local food perspective, you know, technology or smart perspective. Certainly there's been lots of positive energy in India around smart cities, but there's also, you know, there's also each of these areas, if they are applied only in a silo, they can actually degrade place, or they can block the potential for great places and participation and ownership of the public realm. But we see place as a way to sort of reinvent and found these various causes in something practical, in something, you know, real, but also something that's common sense and accessible to everybody, in a way, and facilitate broader collaboration between causes and disciplines, and ultimately greater capacity to take on the bigger challenges have, from equity to health to sustainability, environmental issues. So we think cities fail and succeed at the human scale, at the scale of human interaction. India has this scale of human interaction, you know, more vibrantly, more you know, more robustly than you know, most places on Earth. And you know, this is the scale at which we develop connections. People, locals, tourists alike, you know, fall in love with an Indian city, or you know, a place where they're formed. That tactile human connection, the eye contact, the feeling of the discomfort, the chaos, it enables people to be challenged, to open up, to become, feel like they're part of the place, to want to contribute to the place, not just consume it. And certainly Indian cities were built around this, like in Jodhpur, cities I got to go to a long time ago. You know, you see this pattern of how a place where people come together, where they want to contribute to everyone else's shared experience, can be the anchor of a city. And great streets and great markets are those anchors of social life, of cultural life, of economic activity. And how, you know, again, there's and continue to build on respect the past, but also do this in new ways. But we also have a crisis right now. If you Google the future of cities, most of the images that come up look like this. And this is a future that unfortunately is antithetical to one of place people in that community. This is late stage innovation, late stage capitalism. These are this sort of monoculture of global icons that where each city look more and more the same, and the potential for the city, the economy to change, for upward mobility to occur becomes increasingly and it's this frictionless experience. It actually, it's meant to look, this is greenwashing, it's meant to look sustainable, but this is actually people moving around more and more, accomplishing less and less, able to have less and less agency about shaping and participating in the creation of their public realm, of their cities. So this is fantastical, but unfortunately, if you see any of the new developments, especially done by, you know, American architects or you know, some of the leading design firms around the world, you know, the cities look like this. This happens to be Jakarta, but this is the center of Jakarta, where you can't walk between these buildings. You can't. This is not a center of a city that's going to be celebrating people, culture, life, new ideas. You know, we've gone through an era where we celebrate how the architect alone can create an icon to attract investment and interest in a city. This is in Bilbao. I went here on my honeymoon. These two men mugged a tourist couple right in front of us. And this space is designed for that. It's designed to the building, not about the people and the life, which the rest of the city actually has quite, you know, in droves. But the police, and they said people get mugged right here all the time. It's designed for that pattern of social life, when it could, more inexpensively, could be designed as a social, safe, comfortable, vibrant place. So, you know, different disciplines are each in their silos, are preventing this this creation of spaces. But traffic engineers perhaps have done the worst, but are also the ones we're seeing to turn it around most. So if you plan for cars and traffic, you get cars and traffic. This is Nairobi, but this paradigm is dominant, obviously, all over India, where we've cities where streets have been privatized by roads, and here in Havana, there's fewer cars, but still where there are cars allowed to be, they make for comfortable environments. And of course, New Jersey here in the US, car culture, subsidies for parking for highways have instigated, a car dominant model that's not sustainable economically, culturally, socially, environmentally. And of course, the core of our Times Square in New York, and of our television ads and our billboards are all about car culture and how that's the way to be healthy and feel power and feel safe, when of course it's a threat to all of those things directly. But turning this around isn't about it's being for life, for people. It's making comfortable, open, informal life that India has as much as that a future we want to build around. The simple act of putting a chair in a public space and feeling like you belong there is taking ownership and responsibility for that space. Havana, we had a conference recently on placemaking in Havana, and the children feel welcome to this church, and that's a very different way to grow up. In Nairobi here, they've had a series of placemaking weeks where they experiment with temporary closing streets and have conversations about how they can ramp up placemaking in many different contexts around the city. And this has led to more permanent changes of the street down Nairobi. The city that we worked with when I was at Project for Public Spaces the most was Detroit. And there really a new narrative has emerged where people for a long time, but also some people that are moving in not just to consume the city or keep it the same, but want to help create it, want to be coaxed. And placemaking is a process of facilitating many people to contribute to it, and hopefully preventing any one group from dominating, or just the wealthy people from controlling this. But again, it's this informality, the comfort of this beach we put at the center of the city, right? Actually, the month that Detroit declared bankruptcy, the city had no money to really invest in this type of stuff, but it was some philanthropy, some corporate philanthropy, and a lot of volunteerism that led to a lot placemaking projects throughout in the neighborhoods as well. In Mexico City, there's actually quite large political interest and some decent spaces, but for the capital projects alone, not for the engagement or for the ongoing maintenance and management of spaces. And we've been helped demonstrating through one of our partners there, of Placemaking Foundation, that is showing that the most cost beneficial investments are often low cost projects, but that are part of a community process and that build capacity for management and stewardship of that space. So William White was sort of the mentor of the placemaking movement in many ways, of Project for Public Spaces, and of my father, Fred Kent. And he said, it's hard to create a space that will not attract people. What is remarkable is how often this has been accomplished. This is Piazza del Campo in Siena, Italy. One of the great public spaces of the world where people become increasingly informal and comfortable as they enter of the space. But Boston City Hall Plaza was designed to copy it. They copied the form, not the process through which it was created, the management of it, and the use. Too often, we have created a myth that architects alone shape cities. We need architects to do a lot more shaping cities. Their skills are very, very important, but leading with design, their potential, their creativity. We need to lead with the goal of place and then figure out how design can support those places. So we are shaped by our public spaces thereafter they shape us. This is a street in Sydney, but it could be in many parts of India or anywhere where you don't feel safe, want to go shopping in the downtown because of the fear that's in your blood when you have to cross the street. So these shape us deeply psychologically. They shape us physically, as we can't walk we can't be out of our cars. But the good news is that we're at a turning point around the world, and this is Sydney, the same spot in Sydney. I was just there this time last year, and they opened the street to people, and no longer are cars allowed there. And there's a race, especially during the pandemic, to pedestrianize, like Bangalore, looking at this right now. We've been in touch with people there. But to do it in a way that makes sure these spaces actually are safe, are programmed, are engaged, or have governed financing models that sustain them, and can prove that that's successful. We need just like the car went viral, and workspace, we need to show that now places defined formed by people can create greater success and reinvent our transportation system around destinations to go to, not through, a system that will be compatible with biking, walking, and transit. But it's more than just an efficient transportation system that's going to make this happen and is the goal. It's about creating attachment and comfort and mobility at the centers of our cities. This is the center of Auckland. They're also going to try to get cars off of the central street. But they're shifting their focus from trying to just be livable to city. And actually, lovability can be achieved more affordably, more quickly, more practically than livability. And a focus on livability sometimes alone correlates with high-end investment and higher cost of living. But in a way, India has the lovability, the human connection, the informality, the attachment to place that is most needed to create sustainable, livable cities. How we allow our streets to be defined is an open question, and they have changed a lot. India's streets have changed a lot over different eras and have reflected the classes, the way political and planning decisions, and we can continue to reinvent these flexible spaces. A great public square at the top of the center of the city that's formed by the people that are there, and the comfort of people there is the regular social life is incredible. You want to be there every day to part of it. But many cities have this and can have this, and it's not that hard. It's that being connected in that shared space and watching people that is one of everyone's favorite pastime. And there's wonderful movements within India that we've seen. This is Gurgoin, I think, the Open Streets project that my colleague Nidhi Galati, who is at Project for Public Spaces as well, wrote about and has visited. And there's some videos of and such. But this feeling of being back in the street and feeling that we're creating the street is a powerful thing that can happen everywhere. Here and during the pandemic, it's happening never seen before. So this is this is a really important, crucial opportunity we have to reclaim our streets formed by the people that they are meant to serve. And this is the last few months has been a really lovely time actually to be here. There's a lot of hardship and a lot of businesses are struggling. But they're also reconnecting. People are reconnecting to their neighborhoods and to our streets. This is an open street here in Brooklyn that is meant to support the businesses, to allow them to spill out into this so people that don't have to go inside. But it's not just about the businesses, it's about the social life, it's about art, creativity, exercise, music. This is regular social life that you see during these projects, where people come out of their building and they connect. So it's not expensive, it's not complicated. It's just unleashing this passion that all people have to be part of the world beyond their homes, to take responsibility for the world beyond their homes, to be citizens of that space. So this is stuff we wouldn't have even dreamed of, a year ago in New York, that we could be sitting right in our streets and feel this safe and feel this welcome in these spaces. Dumbo and the business improvement districts are doing this as well. Chinatown, is doing this than anyone, but it's also about place, streets, and health. So what is placemaking? Getting to your question before too, we see placemaking as a collaborative process by which our public realm, in order to maximize shared value, it's really an ongoing question of how we best work together to build our public realm. And we think it needs the discussion of define the placemaking process, and every part of the world defines it a little differently, for better and worse. What someone brings some sector, some disciplines bringing creativity to it, but if any one sector owns it or leads it too much, they're often blocking others' creativity. And there was an MIT study that found that the biggest benefit of placemaking wasn't the improved place, but the improved capacity of placemaking. So the strengthening of the connection between people and the places they share. So PlacemakingX, from the grassroots placemaking movements all around the world to connect and amplify these efforts. But it comes from a long history of efforts in trying to figure out how do we best shape public spaces together. And it's really rooted in the work of William White and Jane Jacobs, people that worked on this in the 60s, and they really identified the problem. But their books and their writing are as relevant today as ever. My father started working with them in the early 70s. Life project, and then he founded Project for Public Spaces in 1975 to put into practice a lot of the thinking that had been the research and findings from their work. Didn't start calling the process placemaking till the 90s, when it moved from being about our expertise as public space practitioners to really realizing that we could get much praise from asking questions of communities and helping them realize their expertise, supporting them to become experts in shaping public spaces. Around 2006 or so, we started seeing this is a global movement. People started talking about how this should be like the new environmental movement. My father actually organized the first Earth Day in New York. So I grew up with a group of the founders of the environmental movement. And we see placemaking is really bringing new partners to many different movements. And so we launched it in 2013, both working with UN Habitat and with many partners around the world, a series of conferences called the Future of Places conferences. Had people from countries to define why public space and placemaking should be central to the shaping of cities. And in the last couple of years, the movement has really been organized. And so PlacemakingX was launched to sort of recognize and support that self-organization all over the world. 2013, my father said that everyone has the right to live in a great place. More importantly, everyone has the right to contribute to making the place where they already live great. So it's not just about consuming cities, it's about, or better cities, or disciplines creating better cities. It's about harnessing and challenging people all over the co-creators of their cities. And so the movement has been shaped by conferences in many corners of the world that we've helped to organize and be part of, and there's many more and being planned. But each of these have taken the conversation in new ways and informed it in new directions. Placemaking is somewhat of a made-up word that we really started using in the 90s. It had been used in different ways all over the world, but we're seeing it used quite universally, in many contexts, even in parts of the world where they don't. So it's a common discussion, and again, it shouldn't be. There's not one definition, and that's okay. So some of the regional placemaking networks that started up and are still emerging globally, or you can see here, and each of them have some of them have websites and social media sites that I encourage people to connect to and learn from. Get to this through the PlacemakingX website, but Placemaking India is one of the newest ones, and I'll get to that in a little bit. But the mission of PlacemakingX is to be a global network of leaders who together accelerate place for the inclusive and beloved communities, and to make the spaces we live into the places we love, to create a thriving, equitable, and sustainable world through the convergence of values, passion, and action around public. And we look to support this movement, building it again at every scale, whether it's around a neighborhood, city, or a country. It's at not just creating greater impact, but advocating for systemic change, making sure we're not perpetuating the status quo of how things may not be working. Stories, it's amplifying the leadership. Again, there's people talking about placemaking in India from many different contexts and experiences. But we want to help tell their stories and connect them to tell their stories together. So they're not alone, but they're creating that learning culture. And then most importantly, we do want to accelerate impact. We need to figure out how through this collaboration, through partnerships, through on-the-ground projects, we can, really shift the way people are shaping cities and many of the bigger challenges we have, locally and globally. So Cecilia Martinez, who was at UN Habitat, really helped us get this movement going. She said, we're creating a global movement to shape spaces into places. So spaces are important, but when spaces have purpose and meaning, they become places. So we're helping people, and adding layers of purpose and meaning onto places is a limitless, offers limitless potential. It's not a limited good. And so, there are various global mechanisms to facilitate and enable to connect to. We worked for several years to get public space and placemaking ideas into the New Urban Agenda, and we successfully got 10 mentions of it in there in 2016. Every 20 years, the UN creates their New Urban Agenda goals, and then the Sustainable Development Goals, Goal 11.7 is about public space, and then also at 2016, the Quito papers came out that Dr. Close, the executive director of UN Habitat, commissioned for Richard Sennett and Ricky Burdett, who wrote it. And they said cities and public spaces need to be incomplete, porous, and complex. In a way, Indian cities have that, but that's often threatened. So we need to celebrate that and support that to allow them to be shaped, to allow people that don't have access to power and money to be able to be part of the future of cities. And public spaces, they say, need to have multiple uses. They need to be more flexible, and they need to have more informality, which again, is health of Indian cities, but is under attack. And in U.S. cities, we took out these factors. We made our public spaces more single use, less flexible, more formal, and it's going to be it's going to be hard to undo that. So, parts of India can leapfrog that, building on the assets that are there. So again, placemaking can bring together these many causes. We don't see it as just public space is just one of many sustainable development goals or one part of the New Urban Agenda. It's a means to facilitate holistic implementation and systemic change to enable adoption of many different goals. And many of the goals, again, that Practical Cities is looking at. But a quick tool, this is supposed to be a master class, I don't have much time to go into tools, but a quick tool to facilitate this conversation and action is a tool for public spaces called the Power of 10. And our theory is that many cities can best be transformed around their public destinations, around their key public destinations. And New York, the transformation of these destinations that are pictured have really transformed how it's perceived locally and globally. But we think, again, it's important just from the design of them, but more importantly from the process and the governance and the management of them as well, which are the parts of it that actually were less expensive and more a replica for each of these stories. But then each of them, Bryant Park, an example, and Project for Public Spaces did a concept plan in 1980 this process, but it's the management of it that deserves most of the credit for its success. And but again, it succeeds and fails at this human scale, which sounds common sense, but it's not, again, how many parks and public spaces have been planned. And a great destination, we say, needs at least 10 places in it. And then each place needs, so it's these uses and activities that create the magic. And this is, as apparent in the market streets of India as anywhere. But but it's user group dominates, and it's the triangulation of different groups that creates the connection, the serendipity, the creativity, and the place attachment, the love for spaces. So we need to start planning it at this scale, but we need to unleash the creativity that's already there, that businesses are already capable of, that vendors are already capable of. And in cases where the vendor or the business is seen as a problem, we need to engage them, support them, challenge them to be part of placemaking. So cities like Melbourne, Australia, very livable, are ranked livable as the most livable around the world. But when they realize that when they think of them as lovable, and think of, are they creating great places, they realize, but not necessarily places that are loved by people or created by the people that are there. But it's also true in informal settlements. This is in Rio, a favela. Some of the public spaces are some of the most uncomfortable, unsafe spaces, but some of them are actually also some of the safest and most vibrant and well loved. And so having people do those in these contexts can reveal how they're working, how they're not, and where to support them, where to make small investments or facilitate communities doing this small improvement themselves. This is something we've done in many parts of the world, including in India, and are bring out the common sense that's there, but also lead to action. So engaging people in an iterative way. It's not about get public input, come up with a design, and then impose it. It's actually about building the capacity for many different disciplines and community leaders to learn together, to make small changes, to make mistakes, to improve upon it, and together think bigger and bigger capacity to implement in a bigger way. And through that, you're actually reinventing governance and democracy in a sense. We say it takes a place to create a community and a community to create a place. And so many governments, especially actually in Australia, where municipal government is very strong, they're realizing that they lack, that the communities have become kind of passive recipients of government. They need to make the focus place to more holistically enable collaboration, but also measure their success more holistically, not just in the silos of the different sectors or different departments of a city. So closing out, the Power of 10 can be a framework through which, if you're in a community or in a city planning department or developer, you can help build a campaign and attract other people to make a place with 10 things to do in it, to support a destination can be transformative for your city, to build a campaign around your region that doesn't look at sort of just master planning, but looks at, where's this acupuncture, the desk in a city or a region that can really reinvent how people participate in shaping it. And then a country like India, we want to figure out what are the 10 best place-led cities in India and tell them their projects. And then there's also a Placemaking Asia Facebook page and networking. We're trying to do conferences that connect people around Asia. But closing, there's more interest again in India from placemakers, from people wanting to learn about placemaking than any other country. And so what you guys can do together, connecting, expertise is there, the passion is there, it's not about the money, it's never about the money, it's about the vision, and then the money follows. It can have a global impact. India has so much to offer to the world on this and what you're doing. It's a small group of people that's needed to do this in each city, each community, and my father worked with Margaret Mead, who said that never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. And this week, in Pimpri Chinchwad, a group gathered for the first Placemaking Week India, thanks to Vanita Shetty and others here that organized this. And this group has done so much, and since then they've created a beautiful many different webinars. You can look at the report from the weekend last year, and then of course they're planning a bigger placemaking week that was going to be this year, but got postponed to next in Mangaluru for the beginning of December. So and some, but there's also been regular webinars we encourage you to look at. A couple collaborations between Placemaking Pakistan and Placemaking India. But please help participate in shaping the Placemaking Week India, the ideas that we want many to be part of its creation and ownership. And and then of course be part of the larger placemaking conversation globally. We need all the energy and participation we can get. So sign up to be an advocate, and then most importantly, the placemaking movement's about drawing on expertise locally. So there's a lot of experts that we want that will be part of some of the subsequent Practical Cities master classes and other events we hope to do together, that will highlight the expertise and more contextualized approach to placemaking that is emerging in India. So we've gone a little long, but if there's time for a couple of questions, and I'd love to take them. Thank you.
Thank you. So, understanding to fill a space and make it in a place. It's a really great to listen from your side. Also, I have some questions during this whole masterclass. Whenever you are converting a place into a placemaking, into a public space where people are, helping. So, what procedure do you follow? Any stakeholder consultation has been done or not? And how do you do it? What's the formal procedure do you follow?
Yeah. So so I'm through sort of the placemaking process slides, but I can share some of those, as well. Yes, a big figuring out the right process and the engagement process. A lot of urban planning is increasingly getting input from communities that feeds into come up with a solution. But the best placemaking actually is about organizing, is about facilitating change. It's about doing, not just planning. And certainly the engagement processes we're seeing that work the most are about doing experiments in public spaces, engaging as many different sectors and businesses and resources, temporary changes, and use that as an engagement. Say what works, what doesn't work. Have some debates, sometimes even some bad press. So this didn't work, and it creates more learning. Can be really useful. But there's lots of engagement tools like the Power of 10. There's also something called a place game that facilitates people learning a space, coming out of their sort of discipline hat, and listening, and then coming up with short-term ideas, long-term ideas, partnering up as well. Yeah.
Also, sir, I read in a newspaper that Paris is aiming for a 15-minute cities. Can India also aim something like that and achieve it?
Certainly. We think there's a trajectory around the world towards back to the district scale, the walkability scale, and reinventing our cities around destinations that are walkable, in neighborhoods that have a whole spectrum of public spaces, from public to private, from informal to formal, have a range of different types of markets of. We need to look holistically at that district scale to make sure cities have that full typology of public spaces, but also reinvent governance best at that 15-minute walkability scale. How people can start to participate again in their community and their government and their shaping of it. But focusing on place and improving your place is the way to engage people again locally. It's not as abstract as national government. And frankly, national governments, around the world, the leadership isn't as much there. So it's actually challenging us all to have, more leadership locally, and to reinvent and strengthen our societies, our cultures, and our nations around these sort of the walkable 15-minute scale neighborhoods.
Yeah, right. Also, sir, do you think any policy change or any program can help India to achieve, a great placemaking movement and lead to that global impact?
So, and I think, this has to be a process of people there having this discussion themselves, and realizing that developing, their own vision around how to best overcome obstacles to placemaking. The obstacles are world. It's the silos of government. It's car culture. It's the perception, lack of capacity to do this work. But you have amazing NGOs. There's really talented, great architects and planners. There's great activists and great academics. There's even some corporations that are seeing this kind of effort as a potential. But if any one of those sectors does this alone or controls it, it doesn't work. So I have seen, I think a challenge in India is to connect these, to enable collaboration. And the way to do that, I think, to start, is to find some demonstration, some places where it's, you can really show that this, because then those places lead, and everyone else, the only way to see, that's the only way to do it. And frankly, it's a more fun way to participate, to work together. It's more resourceful, less expensive, get it to go viral. So, but it's telling these stories of great placemaking projects and communities, making it fun and energizing, and then scaling up the vision of how to replicate it globally.
Yeah. You mentioned about planners and urban designers. So, what do you think how a planner or urban designer can help to achieve this placemaking movement?
So yes, we need more planners, and urban designers are important skills for in India, but we shouldn't lead with their solution set. We should lead with the goal of creating great places, and realize that it's going to take businesses, government, other groups to make it, and developers, the private sector. I've read statistics that 99% of buildings are built without an art thing. We need more of them employed and engaged, but we need to think bigger than just design. And so, people in school, through all different types of school, we're trained to be experts, to have the solutions, and then to sort of impose it, to sell our solutions. It requires a different set of skills. It requires people to be facilitators, to listeners, connectors, organizers, to inspire people, to inform people. We all need to be but it's a different model than actually the typical training to be experts. And again, there's lots of expertise, around the world in these efforts, but it's organizing them differently. So what we talked about before with the process and these governance that can straddle the different sectors and disciplines become most important. Place managers, place facilitators in each 15-minute neighborhood that can draw on all the activity that's there. Use architects to support that community's vision, manage their egos. Sometimes their egos are too big. But harness their creativity and passions as well.
Yeah, I really didn't know that you have in your blood about placemaking, that placemaking is in your blood. So it's a
Yeah.
great session. I hope everyone has learned a lot through this, and they'll help us and achieve a placemaking movement in India also. So thank you so much, sir, for accepting our invitation to come to the Practical Cities initiative. Also, thank you everyone for joining the masterclass number 16. And if you have any query or doubt, you can comment in the comment section below. Also follow us on Instagram, Facebook to get all the updates. Also, if you want to get regular updates and join our initiative, please click link given below and fill out the form. You will get regular updates of the Practical Cities initiative. Thank you all. Good night. Take care.